In the shimmering glass skyscraper of Halberton and Company, nestled in the heart of downtown Chicago's financial district, power walked in polished leather shoes, tailored suits, and quiet arrogance. The top floors buzzed with multi-million-dollar deals, and the air was thick with ambition, strategy, and the intoxicating scent of success. It was a world reserved for the elite, men and women who believed their titles made them untouchable. Among them moved a figure they barely noticed. Her name was Marlene Thomas. She was in her mid-40s, a black woman with deep brown skin, graceful posture, and long, tightly woven braids that brushed her shoulders with each step. Dressed neatly in her dark blue custodial uniform, Marlene walked the pristine hallways of Halberton's executive suites with a quiet confidence that no one cared to understand. Every evening, just after the offices emptied and the city skyline lit up in gold and sapphire hues, Marlene began her work, scrubbing the gleaming floors, dusting the expansive boardrooms, wiping down conference tables where fortunes were made and egos inflated. No one greeted her. No one offered a second glance. To them, she was invisible, especially to the 5 men who ruled the upper echelons of Halberton and Company: Arthur Blaine, the smug and self-congratulating CEO; Preston McKinley, the oily vice president of strategy; Derek Vaughan, the loud, abrasive head of technology; Simon Trent, the insufferable director of human resources; and Caleb Foster, the sharp-tongued finance chief with a Harvard degree and an ego to match. To them, Marlene was nothing more than a fixture, a mop in motion. After hours, the 5 often lingered in the boardroom, drinks in hand, sleeves rolled up, and egos laid bare. They laughed loudly, swapped stories of conquests, business and otherwise, and peppered their conversations with casual cruelty. Does she even know what stocks are? Arthur had once chuckled, his Rolex glinting under the chandelier. Preston, always eager to please, leaned in. She probably thinks hedge funds are what you use for gardening. Derek, who prided himself on his brutal candor, added, imagine her trying to lead a meeting. She'd get lost between the elevator and the whiteboard. Simon and Caleb joined in, making jokes about her uniform, her accent, her gait, and her place in a building she clearly didn't belong in. They never bothered to whisper. Marlene heard it all. She'd been hearing it for weeks. She'd walk in with her mop and bucket just as they were toasting themselves, and they'd glance at her barely and continue their show. She never responded, never gave them the satisfaction of a reaction. She didn't need to, because what they didn't know, what they could never have imagined, was that Marlene Thomas wasn't who they thought she was. Years ago, Marlene had been a rising star in the corporate world. She graduated summa cum laude from Dartmouth, earned an MBA from Stanford, and had led successful turnarounds at several Fortune 100 firms. Her resume was the kind others envied. But after climbing the corporate mountain, she had stepped away, not because she failed, but because she'd seen too much. The racism, the glass ceilings, the whispered dismissals, the exhausting need to prove herself over and over again. So she walked away, but not without a plan. Over the years, she became an activist, a silent investor, and a powerful shareholder in multiple corporations. One of them was Halberton and Company. She purchased stock quietly, strategically, and eventually, anonymously became its largest individual shareholder. She didn't need the title to have power. She already had it. The job as a cleaner? That was by design. She wanted to see it all from the ground level. She wanted to know what changed and what didn't. And most of all, she wanted to see if corporate culture had evolved, or if the same ugly roots of exclusion and entitlement still festered beneath the surface. Halberton and Company gave her the answer, and 5 men gave her the final push. One Thursday morning, just after sunrise, Marlene arrived early. Earlier than usual. She moved through the silent corridors with purpose, her uniform pressed, her shoes polished, her badge clipped to her side. At precisely 8:15 a.m., she entered the executive boardroom. The 5 men were already there, deep in conversation. Arthur was pacing. Preston was bragging about the upcoming acquisition of a rival firm. Derek tapped away at his phone. Simon sipped espresso. Caleb reviewed quarterly forecasts. No one looked up until she cleared her throat. Arthur raised an eyebrow, clearly irritated. Marlene, what is it? Did we spill something already? She walked to the center of the room and set her cleaning caddy down slowly. Yes, she said calmly. I'm here for something important. The sarcasm didn't even wait a beat. What, we forgot to take out the trash? Preston said with a smirk. The others chuckled, except Derek, who muttered, let's hurry this up. I've got a call with Tokyo in 10. Marlene didn't flinch. I won't take long, she said. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a crisp leather folder. I'm here in my capacity as the majority shareholder of Hallburton and Company, she said. Silence. Complete, eerie silence. Arthur blinked, then laughed. I'm sorry. What? I own 34% of this company's outstanding shares, she continued. More than any one of you. Combined. Simon set his cup down. Caleb's hand froze over his spreadsheet. Derek's phone dropped to the table. Preston's jaw twitched. This is a joke, Arthur barked. You clean floors. I observe floors, Marlene replied coolly. I clean messes. And it appears there are 5 sitting here. The room was motionless, suspended in stunned disbelief. She continued, for weeks, I've listened to your condescension, your misogyny, your racism. I've watched you belittle employees, intimidate interns, and treat this company like your personal playground. That ends today. What are you saying? Simon finally stammered. I'm saying, Marlene said, that effective immediately, I'm calling for a board vote to remove each of you from your positions. Arthur stood up, his face red. You can't. I can, she cut him off, her voice rising slightly for the first time. And I have. The paperwork has already been filed with the board. Legal has been notified. And the press? They'll hear about this before lunch. Derek tried to scoff. No one will believe you. Marlene smiled, tapping her folder. I have recordings. Weeks' worth. You forgot the first rule of power. Those at the top are always being watched. And those you think are powerless are often the ones who built the ladder you're standing on. By 11 a.m., Hallburton's internal communications team had issued a statement. By noon, the headlines broke. 5 executives ousted at Hallburton after shareholder coup. Janitor turns out to be majority owner. Corporate culture shock. The rise of Marlene Thomas. The 5 men were escorted from the building by security. Their careers ended not with a scandal they orchestrated, but with a reckoning they never saw coming. Marlene didn't stop there. Over the following months, she launched a foundation dedicated to dismantling systemic racism in corporate America. She restructured Hallburton's leadership team, brought in diversity-focused HR policies, and ensured that promotions came from merit, not connections. Her quiet strength and decisive action made her a legend, not just in business, but in justice. People across the country began sharing her story. She was interviewed by top magazines, invited to speak at universities, and honored by social justice organizations. But she remained grounded. She still rode the same train to work, still greeted every staff member by name. And once a week, she still visited the maintenance floor, not to clean, but to sit with the people often ignored, overlooked, and unseen. Because she never forgot what it felt like to be invisible. And now, the world couldn't take its eyes off her. Marlene Thomas, once dismissed as just the cleaning lady, became a symbol of grace, intelligence, and power. Her presence redefined what leadership looked like, and she never had to raise her voice to do it. Her revenge wasn't loud. It was transformational. And it was only the beginning.